Hello, everyone. Today, I would like to give you a sneak preview into what's going to be TEI Publisher 10. This will mostly take the form of a demo, and I won't go really into technical details because I think at this point it's more important to understand what the basic ideas and concepts are, because there's a lot of new stuff. So I will try to explicitly target the more non-technical audience, and I think the technical discussion we can then later take into another forum. So let me just dive in medias res and share my screen. And please also excuse if my computer is a bit slow today. My Mac broke down and I have to use my little Surface tablet. So it will all be slightly more sluggish than usual. Anyway, I hope you can see my browser window. So let's just assume the following scenario. You have a collection of letters. In this case, we are using the letters of Mikołaj'a Serafina as an example. So you have a collection of letters. You want to create a correspondence edition. There are certain features you would like to have, like in most correspondence editions. And those would be like, you have synoptic text display because there's the Latin original of the letter. There's a Polish translation. They are connected using segments, and we get some mouse over effects to see which Latin section corresponds to which Polish section. We have registers with people, so all the people appearing in that letter. We have a register of places, providing information about those places. So far, so good. What you would also like for a correspondence edition is a possibility to navigate. So here, to navigate to the next letter in the whole correspondence, but also a possibility to navigate to the next letter in the particular correspondence between those two people. So in this case, Jakub Stąpowski to Serafin. You also may want to have the possibility to actually look at a list of people, like here. So you can see the different people, get some explanation, and have a link to the letters in which they appear. And for the places, the same. You may just want to go to a place and then see which letters, in which letters this place appears. So that would be an app like we already did docents. The problem every time is that while TEI Publisher provides quite a good basis in terms of features, not all of the features you would see in an app like this are there out of the box, like the people register, places register, and so on. So what I usually do is copy and paste. So I go to an app I already did, so say Azure Briefedition or something, and then look up how did I do it there and copy the corresponding code into my new app. Obviously, that's not very efficient. So the idea is with TEI Publisher 10 that assuming your data complies with the best practice recommendations, and outlining those will be one of the jobs for the future. But if your data complies with the best practice recommendations, you can basically recreate this particular app as you see it with just a few mouse clicks. That's the basic idea. Or in other words, we would like to take the Lego block idea, which was behind TEI Publisher all the time, further by decomposing the whole framework into even smaller features which can be recombined. So if we look at a letter, again, there are different bits and pieces which in themselves form a certain feature. And I tried to sketch this. So we divide TEI Publisher, the monolithic TEI Publisher as it was, is decomposed into what we call profiles. And we have a number of profiles here which contribute something to the page. So first of all, we have the text display. That's coming from a profile called parallel text or synoptic text. And it gives you this kind of synoptic view of different versions of the text you may have. We have an entity register profile, which contributes like this list of people and places, the map, but it also contributes to the menu. So we have people and places in the menu with the corresponding pages behind. That's also contributed by this particular profile. Plus, we have the correspondence profile, which handles the navigation between letters. So next letter, previous letter, next letter in a particular correspondence. All those profiles can be combined. And as I said, they all contribute to the page as you see it, but each profile is standalone, so it can be recombined with other compatible profiles. So instead of using, say, parallel text, synoptic text, if there's just one transcription and nothing else, then you would just replace this with another profile. So that's the basic idea. So you're taking this, like Lego toolbox idea further and decompose TEI Publisher itself into an ensemble of smaller features which can be recombined. So far, so good. Let's just dive in and try to reconstruct what we see here using TEI Publisher 10. As I said, TEI Publisher 10 is no longer a single application. Instead, what we have is an application generator, which does generate applications based on a configuration. You can see this here. It's actually a separate project on GitHub, and we call it Jinx. And so this represents the application generator, which will be the core at the core of TEI Publisher and generates itself TEI Publisher in the final version when it's out. At the moment, this is rather basic user interface because we did not want to spend time on creating a more user-friendly interface before things have settled. So TEI Publisher 10 will likely still ship with a rather simple configuration-based interface. But that said, the idea certainly is that at a later point, once those configurations became more stable, this will be replaced by a completely form-based interface. So let's just generate regenerate this application we had. We need to give it an abbreviation. Let's call it register. And then we can select from different features. So first of all, you always need one of the base profiles. And we have two of them at the moment. There's one which includes the TEI Publisher functionality, which means like transformations via ODD and this kind of stuff. But there are also situations when you may want to have a plain application which actually does not use TEI Publisher at all. So it does not include the ODD transformations and so on. You can also choose this as a base. for particular cases, if you just have documentation or so. Then we will select demo data, so we have some data to work with. We will select the entity registers, obviously. And this then automatically selects parallel synoptic text because it has this dependency defined on it. We want this correspondence feature. And let's say, yeah, let's keep it like that. You can see that up here you get this JSON configuration, which at this point basically only repeats what we input. So it lists the different features we have selected. Now let's just try it and click on apply. So this will now take a bit because it's the first time we generate this application. And as I said, my tablet is rather slow. So it will take a few seconds. And then let's say in the next step, we then just want to change the title of the app, but let's wait until it's done and have a look at it. Deployment is a bit slow on this. Anyway, there we are. So now we can have a first look. And well, this is still the old one. Will be replaced in a second with the new one. So that's the new one. Looks quite similar, except that yeah, a few things are missing. So let's go back and say we want to actually change the label, which is displayed in various places, because at the moment it's just, oh no, I don't want this. No, need to copy and paste this because otherwise typing takes too long. So we just change the label as one first example, and then we click apply again. And now it does not reinstall the whole application, but it actually only checks what has changed. And we then get a list of things which were updated. We will come back to that. So going to the register again, click, and then we should get a different title. Yeah, so it has changed the title here. It has changed the title in the browser window and some other places. Next, let's go back and say it would be quite nice if we also had a timeline. So we just click timeline to add that feature, apply again. So go back, reload. And we get a timeline, and we can use that. So, no, what's up? Something's hanging. Oh, I'm sorry, that seems broken. Okay, nevertheless, it was working. So just take my word, clicking would change the displayed letters. Nevertheless, what else can we do? Yeah, we have various things here in the menu bar, which we may not want. So we don't really support switching the language. We also don't want to have this search box here because we already have it here. So we want to remove that. And for this, you can just change the configuration. So I'm just now copying and pasting things. So we change in the menu, we don't want to have the search and we don't want to have the language selector. And then we just do apply again. Go back and say reload. And you can see the search box disappeared and the language selector disappeared. And that then obviously should also apply to the single letters. Yep. So what else may we want to have? So let's say we want to have an about page about the project. There is already a TEI file in the demo data collection about our protagonist, Seraphine. So we may just want to add that. However, we may want to use a different ODD for displaying this introductory text. Yeah. So let's have a look at that. Obviously, we need to upload that ODD. So basically, for those who already are used working with TEI Publisher, concerning the application itself, not much does change with respect how you work with it. Yeah, it's just that parts of this application are now generated, and advantage is that you can actually apply updates rather easily. But at any point, the app manager will respect your changes. So if you work on the ODD and change it, that will be respected. So no damage will be done, but let's just upload an ODD. So we go to, I now do it via Excite because that's the easiest way here in the browser right now. So just upload, upload files, and then I want my ODD. It's called project ODD. So it should be there. Yes, there is a project ODD. I also need to announce that in the configuration. So I will just add that again. I'll copy and paste. So I list, and it's called project.odd. So that's step 1. And step 2 is that I need to tell TEI Publisher that for this collection, which contains the about page, I want to use this different ODD. So for this, I would just do collection config and say collection config, and then my collection here is called auxiliary, and the ODD is project.odd, and I want to use a different template because I obviously don't have all that information about places and people in the project documentation. So those are my changes. But I also want to, well, let's try this first. No, it won't work yet because I don't have anything in the menu. So we extend the menu with another menu item. I already have that up there. Wait. So we extend the menu with another menu item to access our about page. So this means to add a menu item called about, and it points to auxiliary intro.xml. So now let's try this, apply. Okay, now there's one important additional step because I added an ODD. And as those who are familiar with TEI Publisher will already know, if you just add an ODD, you also need to regenerate the compiled X-query code, which does the actual transformation. So we need to do that. And here I added an action. So every profile can come with actions. And here we have one which is called fix ODDs. Maybe need a better name, but I'll just click that, and it should take care of compiling our new ODD, regenerating the corresponding configurations. Again, takes a moment on my slow surface, but then we are done. So let's go back, reload that page, and then hopefully we will see an about item in the menu. Yes, there it is. So we see it added to the menu, and then let's see if that leads. Yes, that's the project intro. Okay, so far so good. We can also change styling. So let's say we want to add, well, we want to replace the logo. We want to replace the splash image, which shows when the page is newly loaded. So for this, I obviously need to upload some images. So I'm going back to Excite and then just say images and go to the upload. And then I hope I can just drag and drop them. We want logo and we want this animation. So just adding. So 2 files added. I'm going back here and then I need to change the theme. And again, I'm now just copy and pasting that to not waste your time with me typing that stuff. So I added this section about the theme, and there you have different settings. You have logo and the width. You have a dark logo and a light logo, because what's also new is that we have a switch for dark and light mode, which means that depending on the color scheme, you need to have 2 different versions. So let's just apply that and see what it does. Okay, already done. Load. And there we are, we have a different logo. Okay, so far so good. What is also important now to note is that, well, basically you can see that we are using different profiles, and each profile will contribute some configuration to the overall configuration. What we are doing here is just we are overwriting configuration items. However, the real configuration will be the one merged from all the different other configurations contributed by those profiles. So you can see that down here. So that's the full configuration applied. Yeah, so each profile contributes something. It contributes CSS, it contributes ODDs, and so on, and contributes to the menu. So here you see the full menu with start, people, places, about, and so on. So that's the full configuration. And as I said, at the moment, configuration is mainly done by editing those JSON files, or editing it here as I did. But the idea is that then in a future version, all this can actually be done in a web-based form. And in fact, that's not too difficult to do, because yeah, my colleague Jörn Turner and others have created this very cool forms framework called Forum, which already is used in a number of projects and also in TEI Publisher in some places, annotation editor. And with that, creating forms then actually becomes quite straightforward once you have the data model halfway clear. And that's where we are still working at. at the moment. So the data model may still change for all those configuration parameters. But I'd also like to show you what happens now if I just work normally on that app. So say I want to go and I just want to change something in the ODD. Yeah, like I normally do with apps. So what can we change? Yeah, let's say we just want to override the processing for high. I will not change anything here. It's enough that I just add something to the ODD. I save this. Da-da-dum. Okay, it's saved. And now next time I go to the application manager and I click on apply. You will see that it reports conflicts. So it detected that my Seraphine art was locally changed by me, and it will not override that because obviously you don't want to lose any of your changes. So the basic workflow remains the same. You generate an application, you modify those bits which you obviously need to modify, and you can still later go back to the app generator and rerun it on your application, and the app generator will automatically detect what has been changed locally and what cannot be overwritten and what can be overwritten. This also has an impact on updates. So assume that we are moving from TEI Publisher 10 to TEI Publisher 11. Then so far, updating actually involved quite a few manual steps. With the new version, that should be mostly obsolete, because if the, say, upstream version changes, so the profiles change in the upstream version, and you're running apply, then the changes would be automatically written into your version, replacing those files which you have not changed. And the only thing which you would then need to pay attention to is to actually look through those files for which a conflict is reported and check if those can be overwritten or not. At the moment, there's no automatic mechanism here to actually do that, so I would need to do it manually. But still, there are things like resources auth, Seraphine auth. I likely never want to be overwritten because that's my own stuff. So I don't want to change that, even if there's a newer version of Publisher. Okay, so yeah, one last thing. What you can also do is there's a static generator profile. So you can actually create a static version of your application, which then would no longer require TEI Publisher or XSDB. It becomes just a collection of HTML files which you can basically download and either view locally or upload to any cheap hosting service without requiring a database, without requiring much. So for that, you need to add this static generator profile. And then if I apply, I should get another action down there. No, okay, this doesn't yet work quite well. So let me reload the page, because then I think I should get that. Yes, and now you get this generate static files button. So clicking that will take approximately 2 minutes, so I won't do it right now, but we can just look at the one I already generated before. Now, where did I put it? Okay, we can click again here. So here I have another menu entry, static version. That's what's added by the static profile. So I can click here and I get a static version of the very same application. obviously this looks different because in a static version, which is just HTML, we don't have any dynamic features. So at this point here, we cannot have facets and all the kind of fancy stuff. We can just have a list of documents. But nevertheless, we do have those documents, we can browse through them, and we can also recreate certain dynamic features, though I have not done that here. But if we open a letter, it basically pretty much looks like before. Yeah, so, and this is entirely static, it's just HTML. You could upload this, say, to GitHub Pages, and it would be free of cost. So you could host something without it costing you any money. And I can even have like the people list here. The thing is, again, that the dynamic components we're using in the normal TEI Publisher won't be available. So it looks slightly different. And obviously, I also need to adjust my HTML templates to reflect that. You know? So here I just have this sidebar with the letters to select people. Places also works, and I even do have the map still. But again, the browsing is different because it's much more restricted. Yet, like 90% of the features are still there. In this example now, you also don't have a search. Because we actually disabled that in the menu, yeah. Okay, sorry. But in fact, you can still have a search functionality. It's just more limited. So maybe I can just run the static generator in the background and re-enable the search. So we can actually, so I will rerun it while talking, and then I can show you the search. Generate static files. Okay. So what will be the benefits, just to highlight that? I think, first of all, for technical editors, it should clearly lower the technical barrier. So the promise, as I said at the start, is that if you are following certain best practice recommendations, you can be sure that you can create an edition app without deep technical knowledge, just doing configuration changes. And in the future, those configuration changes will even be possible via a convenient form-based interface. In concrete, this means that, for example, the correspondence feature, it is based on Correspdesk, so the TEI feature called Correspdesk. And it requires, obviously, that you have a Corresp action in your document and you have a Corresp context. Corresp context giving you the links to the next previous letter and so on. So that's the requirement for that particular profile. If your data fulfills that requirement, it will work with the profile and you will benefit from the feature. That's the basic idea. The benefit for developers, well, there are many, but just to name two, I like to avoid copy and paste of code snippets between projects. I can instead benefit from community maintained features. So if I use a feature which is there and just click it and add it, then I can at least be sure that I'm not the only one using it. So there will be other people who maintain it, help maintain it. And I can feel a lot safer about that. Also interesting for developers, but this is more technical, the whole HTML page templates are a lot simpler using just semantic HTML and CSS with minimal design. So it becomes much easier to actually redesign things according to your own requirements as it was before. So we dropped a lot of the overhead we historically had in our HTML. And there's a completely new HTML templating framework, which mimics a lot of the features you find in well-known static site generators like 11t and so on. So, but that would be a separate talk. And finally, what are the benefits for hosting institutions? Well, first of all, easier maintenance, because updates can be done mostly automatic, not entirely. There still needs to be some checking and confirming, some review, but a lot can be done automatic. You do have this option to generate a static version, which is good for things like long-term archiving. Yeah, so if you really just want to make sure that the current state of your edition can be saved in a way that it would very likely still work in 10 or 20 years, then static generation is quite a good option. You also have the possibility to create your own profile, which means that for an institution, having certain standards and a certain design, which should be consistent across all the editions hosted by that institution. So that institution could simply create its own profile and reuse that for all the editions they create. Then another advantage would be rapid production of digital editions by just reusing those profiles you prepared or other people prepared. And finally, also an important aspect is predictable costs. Yeah, because if you are reusing profiles which are community maintained, that certainly makes the cost factor much more predictable. And you mainly need to only think about those features which are not common, which are specific to your edition, where you cannot benefit from available profiles. So coming to an end, basically TEI Publisher 10 will provide the technical fundament, but it's equally important to fill it with life. So you could see that we do provide a limited number of profiles already, which have been worked out to some extent, but there's still more to be done. And obviously, we also cannot cover all the possible use cases out there, because we just only know those use cases we actually encountered during the past years. So the idea is certainly that the existing number of profiles can be extended, but for this we need the community. We cannot just do this on our own. Equally important is also that, as I repeatedly said, profiles should serve as model best practice recommendations. To make this possible, that you can say, okay, if your data has context and has desk according to the specs laid out by the correspondence profile, it will display nicely out of the box. This needs to be documented somewhere. It needs to be made clear. People need to know that, right? So for some of those profiles, we already went through the process and tried to remodel the XML to follow our idea of what best practice for this particular use case would be. We also are working together with the TEI Technical Council, because they have a working group led by Magdalena to develop a TEI Lite 2.0 version. And within TEI Publisher, we are already using that TEI Lite 2.0 for some of the samples, in particular the Seraphin letters. Advantage would be that this would represent kind of a stripped down customization of TI, which you can use as a common basis. So it would, yeah, the goal is to reduce choices. As you all know, in TI, you always have like 100 choices how to do something, but it's actually good to have a more clear guideline to limit the number of choices you actually have to make to those which are really necessary, and not lose time on considering choices which have no effect on the quality of your data. So this all requires clear documentation and consideration of what does constitute best practice for a particular type of digital edition. And again, here we would like to include the community. Yeah, so far so good. That's my talk. We have like 15 minutes or more for questions, so please ask.
Really very interesting. I also noticed lots of overlap with the things that I've been talking about 2 weeks ago. So I was wondering, the profiles, some of the profiles seem really data oriented. So I bring into the edition, for instance, the external entities such as persons and places. Some other profiles are look really like bits of functionality, like the timeline. And at the end of your talk, you also said, as an institute, you can have a profile really to have your own styling to the edition. So is it really true that a profile can be anything? It's really a collection of whatever functionality you want to add to the whole?
Yeah, so originally I was distinguishing between blueprints, themes, and features as like the three types of profiles you could potentially have. And yeah, in fact, this distinction is arbitrary because yeah, you can put all those things into a profile together or use separate profiles. So that's all possible. So each profile really only adds what it really needs. So say the timeline feature, yeah, it obviously adds a fragment of HTML which displays this timeline, but it also needs to add an API endpoint through which this timeline feature can actually retrieve the dates, and through which it can communicate with the search. So this is added, and it adds a piece of CSS. So that's how profiles work. They just add, or ideally they should just add what is really specific to that profile, a little block of this, a little block of that, and then they stack up. So one profile extends the next. Yeah, that's the basic idea.
Thank you.
So yeah, so my question really is very much a continuation of what Peter was asking about. When one develops a profile, so you said one adds different bits, and I'm sure there's technical details of how you actually add them, but it occurs to me that conflicts are easy to arrive at. For example, CSS, we know that the order of the CSS in the whole application matters, and sometimes you can overwrite CSS with parallel CSS. So I'm wondering, is there going to be some mechanism to look for conflicts, or every combination of profiles will need to be tested? It seems like a vulnerability that may occur, especially when the community will start, if and when the community will start to add our own profiles.
Yeah, that's indeed a bit of a problem, because for sure also the sequence in which profiles are added up, stacked up matters. So if I put in the example I was using, if I put the registers profile in the middle of the list and there's another profile afterwards, then the static generator gets problems because it suddenly uses the wrong HTML template. So this I had just this afternoon. So that's still a bit of an unsolved question, in particular with the stacking up of profiles. Though I do have a mechanism to define an order of profiles, but yeah, those things might happen. And with CSS in particular, it's not completely unavoidable, I think. But yeah, it's still a bit of an open issue, which would need to be further discussed and investigated.
Thank you. On the other hand, I can't wait to get my hands on it. So it's very, very interesting and impressive.
So I see there are some questions. Questions in the chat. Let me start from the top. What if one letter is an answer to two or more letters? Well, that's a very specific question. I think in this data set it just doesn't happen, because in fact we only have the letters to Serafin, not those from him, and therefore the correspondence is always quite straightforward. It's one direction always. In other projects, it happens that there are letters which are going out to several, from one sender to several recipients, and there can be overlap. Like if you have communications, so I've in communications to multiple people, and then the answers are coming back. So, but how you do that navigation-wise is a project-specific decision. So I don't think we can come up with a generic feature for that. Yeah. Okay, Magdalena wants to answer.
Yeah, sorry. If I can chime in on that, because Wolfgang said that this is coming from the chorus context. And so it's less the question of the facts of life and more a question of what is there in the chorus context. So for this like two degrees of navigation presented, next in the entire correspondence, that's sort of editor's choice which one is next, and similarly for if you have letter exchanges between two or more individuals, as an editor you have an influence to over that by but sometimes you might need to customize this feature for sure.
Okay, so I will go through the questions which are not marked as questions for later, because those we cover when we switch off the recording. So Sebastian Flick asks, question about dropping HTML overhead. Does this mean there will be no more HTML custom elements, aka web components in the templates? No, so we are still using, in the dynamic version, we are still using web components. Well, the reason for this is simply that web components for something like displaying actually the text in a synoptic display and so on, they help to avoid common problems like this CSS pollution you sometimes suffer from. So basically, I still like web components. The one disadvantage in all versions of TEI Publisher is basically that we were strongly relying on a certain framework, namely Google Material Design, as a design system, which is stands behind some of the components we are using. This is something we would like to drop, and we would like to move to completely generic web components. That is, web components which are not using any framework at all, but can be fully styled to your liking. That's still a way to go, and it was not the focus of TEI Publisher 10. What we tried in TEI Publisher 10 is to remove all that Google stuff from the pages where we could. So wherever Google Material Design was used for the basic page layout, and so that's out. We're not using that anymore. Instead, we just do semantic HTML. So I think we made a big step there because that covers probably like 80%. The remaining 20% we will need to address within the TEI Publisher components repository itself, and that's still work to be done. And but we can't do everything at the same time, so that's for later. Hope that answers it. And another question also from Sebastian, I think, will all the possible options for the configuration JSON be documented? Yes, sure. And there is already a JSON schema which helps with inputting. It's just that the editor component I'm using, I do have a version which enables autocomplete with JSON schema, and then it shows you what is available and the documentation. But I could not get it 100% to work yet, so it's not integrated yet. But there needs to be a lot of documentation, obviously, because TEI Publisher 10 will be quite a different beast than before. Another question, is it still possible to configure the application in the single files of code instead of JSON and apply it simply by saving? Yes, sure. So you can still work as before. So the workflow itself doesn't change that much. What changes is that instead of just generating an application one time, you can come back and regenerate whenever you want. So it's not a one-time operation anymore, but it can be repeated. However, you still have the possibility to generate your app and then go dive deep into the code and change whatever you like. As I said, the app manager makes sure that it never overwrites your local changes. So it does track every file using a checksum and makes sure that, So then Peter Boot says he would love to attend a session that goes deeper into data model and HTML templating. I think, yes, we should have, we should definitely have a more technical discussion somewhere. Maybe our newly established technical working group would be the right place for that. So I will set up. I will set that up, and then there will be an invitation for those who would like to actually dive into the technical details. Joe asks, where is the application configuration, minimal and merged versions stored? Yeah, so in every project file, so in every project that collection, you will have config.json, which is the configuration entered by the user when you generated the app, and you will have a context.json, which is the merged configuration. So that's always there, and from there basically Jinx, so the application manager, knows that this was a generated application. So what I also can do is I can take one of my old applications. I have not prepared demo for that now, but I can take one of my old applications. I can generate a config for it, put that config in, and then the application manager thinks, this is something I generated, and it will still work with it, yeah, to some extent. Obviously, it will then not override my stuff. Okay, so then I would say, Boris has another question.
Okay, hello. Thank you, Wolfgang, for this introduction for me. And my question is, because the features depends on the encoding of TEI files or other formats. So if there could be some step, for example, that analyzes my data and suggest features that can be applied to my data.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I choose some features that can't be applied because I don't follow some rules, for example, how to encode places, etc. So it throws, for example, an error because this can't be this can be found in my data, so this feature will not work. So if I see these two possibilities, how to improve this.
Yeah, so at the moment this is not obviously not yet implemented, but it would certainly be possible to use something like schematron or so to actually check the data before, or check if a feature is compatible with that particular data. So I think in this area, namely documentation and explaining things and making sure that people actually know what each profile expects. Yeah, so there's still quite some work to be done, and I would in particular like to address the those who do not feel so technically skilled to actually join in, say, a technical working group and discuss those things in detail. But everyone at this point can actually contribute. And we need people who can write down and document all this stuff, and also to further develop those profiles and the best practice rules which should be behind them. So I don't think we will be able to manage all this for TEI Publisher 10. As I said, Publisher 10 provides a fundament, but then the actual work, namely defining those best practices and so on, and documenting them and so on, that's another step, and it might then go well into TEI Publisher 11 and beyond. But it's something which we should have, which we should focus on afterwards. And we will certainly try to keep the discussion going in this respect. Okay.
Thank you.